Hi, my name is Joe Corpy, and I'm with Bethel Christian Missionary Alliance Church in Boone, Iowa. I want to talk briefly about orality with you. Now, I had never heard of that before Craig and Marilyn Hanscom came to our church. And they didn't do a workshop or training or anything. They just came as visiting missionaries one Sunday morning to fill in and do a Sunday morning missionary message. And Craig had kind of explained a little bit about what orality was, and then he shared the story of Zacchaeus. Now, I love the story of Zacchaeus, so it was fun. And you know how it is. When someone's telling a story on a Sunday morning, that makes it more fun because you don't have to sit there and take notes. You just listen, it's fun, it's great. And the story got done, he said, and that's the end of our story. And then he said, but now I'm going to ask you some quiz questions. Uh-oh, I wish I'd paid more attention. And then he said, now, since you probably didn't pay careful enough attention, let me tell the story one more time. So I thought, okay, now competitive. Listening for details, small details. I want to get this right. And then he starts asking the questions, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. This is kind of cool. When he got to that last question, who should I tell this story to? I thought, oh, there's something to this. And then he told the story one more time, having us fill in the blank or maybe act that out or use motions or sound effects or whatever. And I got kind of excited. I thought, this is something we should do. Now, you need to understand why I got excited about that. We got to back up a couple of weeks before the Hanscoms came to our church. We had a workshop with Melissa McDonald. If you don't know, Melissa McDonald is the head of children's ministries for the Christian Missionary Alliance. And she had shared with us during the workshop some thoughts about ministering to children. And one of the things she said was, the age at which most average kids make a decision for Christ, which was a lot younger than I thought it would be. And then she said, and this really kind of startled me, that most children by age 5 have already made up their mind about how they feel about God. Really? She said, yeah, think about, what does your church do for kids who are 5 and under during the Sunday service? She said, aren't you kind of hoping that someone will take them downstairs to the nursery so the rest of us can enjoy the message? I'm like, yeah, kind of, sort of, maybe. And she said, and who's waiting for them down in the nursery? Now, if you knew this was a critical ministry, she said, shouldn't you have your spiritual Navy SEALs waiting for them to really teach them everything they need to know? She said, who do we normally have down there? She said, I don't want to use the term social misfits, but isn't it usually the people who don't want to be around people? So they stay around the kids and keep them from killing each other and themselves. So just make sure the diapers change by the time mom and dad get back down and everyone's happy. And all the parents are thinking they should be just promoted right to sainthood, right when they die. Are we doing the kids a disservice? So I looked around my next service to see what are we doing for our kids during the Sunday morning service. No, don't get me wrong. Bethel Church has got a great Sunday school program. Loving teachers, teaching them God's Word. That's great. But what about during the Sunday worship service? We had a lot of, not proud to admit, a lot of computer game time, as long as you keep the volume down, playing with toys, or art lessons. Yeah, most of the kids 5 years old and younger were turned around backwards, kneeling on the floor, playing on the pew like it was their new workbench, facing backwards. The sermon was literally and figuratively going over their heads. So when the Hanscoms shared with us about orality and using Bible stories, I thought, that is what we need. That is what we need for children's church. So I went and talked to the pastor about my idea of having children's church during the Sunday morning service. They could stay for the songs and stuff, and then we would break out and take the kids out to have their church while the grown-ups have their church. And when I first shared that idea with him, bless his heart, my poor pastor is looking at me like, yeah. And I didn't realize it right away, but you know how many people in a church come up to a pastor and say, brother, I have this wonderful idea for a ministry that our church should do, and you should find someone to run it. That's what he was hearing. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. You need to understand. I want to do this. This is something I feel I should do. And then he went, okay, run with it. But we kind of came up with a business plan because, if you're going to do this, you got to do it right. And you don't want to stop it after you start. So I announced to the church, we're thinking about doing this. And I could see there was quite a few people really excited about it. And I said, if you want to help out, if you want to volunteer to do it, sometimes when I'm not available, let me know. And I had 4 different people that said, boy, I'd love to do that. I'll be a deputy. How can we do this? Well, Craig Hanscom, before he had left, had sent me a PDF version of a book by John Walsh, All the Stories of the Bible, where they just took and broke just Bible stories into little short stories. And I gave them each a copy of this, and I said, pick one, any one. There's like 200 and something stories. Pick one, memorize it, be ready. And I had them kind of sit and watch me do it, so they kind of understood how it was done. Again, now we hadn't had the training. We're running with this. And they said, okay. One of them said, wait a minute, what happens if we get called on a second time? They've already heard our story. I said, how many times did kids watch Frozen? Don't worry about repeats. They're still in, right? So just memorize your story, be ready at a moment's notice. And they're like, okay, here we go. So we started doing this, and it went really well. We had like 4 or 5 kids. The next thing you know, I've got a circle in the gym. We've got little carpet squares down. They're all sitting in this big circle. A growing group. They're bringing in friends, and this is going great. The parents are happy. It's much quieter for them. The fidgety kids are sitting there with me. We're having a great time. They're having a great time. And then COVID hit. Yeah, COVID-19, no church. So we're like, okay. The first Sunday, everyone's, huddling at home, feeling sorry for themselves, hoping the angel of death will pass over their house. By the second Sunday, the church board were all thinking, yeah, we should do something. Let's find some way to hold church, So we did, Zoom church, virtual church, and that was great for the grown-ups, but what about for the kids? And then I was like, got it. And a YouTube channel was born. I started recording the Sunday morning children's church message for the kids. And at first I kind of did it like Blue's Clues style, where it's like I'm pretending I'm talking right to them and giving them time to respond. It was a little kitschy, but we got through it. And we started out with, the rules of children's church like we would every Sunday, trying to make it feel normal, stay in your carpet square, keep your hands to yourself. And I always throw in the fun rule of don't play leapfrog with a rhinoceros. You'll get the point. It makes the kids laugh. They love it. And about 3 messages in, someone pointed out to me, you can probably skip the rules and just get right to the story. I'll make it a little shorter. They were right. Now, how do you do the reflective questions in a video is kind of the challenge, right? So I would share the story once, and then what I'd say is, now I'm going to ask you some quiz questions. So go back to the start of the video and watch it a second time, and then we'll go through the questions. And I'd wait a second, and then I'd just start asking the questions one after another. The problem is when you record it on YouTube and YouTube says, hey, is this for kids? Duh, it's called Children's Church. Yeah, it is. And then YouTube shuts off the comments field, which I understand. There's a child safety reason. They don't want weirdos talking to the kids. I get it, right? But how do we get the kids to comment back to the questions? And then I was like, got it. Facebook. Most of our church members are on Facebook. So I would record it on video on YouTube, and then we would post it on Facebook. And then what I do is as soon as it was uploaded, I would really quick go in there, and I had the questions pre-scripted out 1 through 6 or 7. And then I would just put them in one at a time. So comment number 1 was boop, 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 boop. So then if the parents would let them, the kids could go in and right beneath the question they wanted to answer, type in their comment. And it worked out pretty good. And finally, we could have church again, and so we started doing, children's church back in the gymnasium. Social distancing, spread the carpet squares out 6 feet. Let me tell you, you have to be able to raise your voice to be heard across the gymnasium when you've got, 14 kids all 6 feet apart from each other. But some of the kids weren't there because their parents either had health issues or were still afraid of COVID. So we kept recording it as well and putting it out on YouTube and out on Facebook, and it worked out really good. But then I started thinking, where else could I be using this tool? See, I'm a safety professional by trade. I do a lot of safety training. And I thought, a lot of times I'll share a case study or talk about a story of something that happened, and I'll make this point, and it's powerful. You can tell people are like, wow. And then you go on to the next point you want to make, and you just watch the brain erase the story. I thought, what can we do to make the story what if we used orality? I would tell the story and then ask the reflective questions afterwards. Now, obviously in a secular setting, you can't say, what does this tell you? It was about the nature of God. So I had to change it to a more appropriate for the setting question, but telling a story with reflective questions. And it worked. And then I got invited to be a speaker at American Society of Safety Professionals Safety 2020, which turned out to be a virtual conference. And so I did a story called Orality, a new tool for your toolbox. And I made a point of saying this isn't the only tool you're going to use. This is just a tool, but you should definitely be proficient in it because it costs nothing. It uses no technology. Technology can't fail you on this one. As a matter of fact, the lights can go out and you could be having a tornado and you're all down at the tornado shelter and you tell a story and they answer questions. Hey, it works! And so I did this talk. I thought, might get 20 or 30 people. About 460 people or more participated in that forum, and the comments were extremely positive. People saying, wow, this is a great idea. I can't believe I've never heard of this before. Stories, reflective questions. And I'm like, yeah, I know, right? It's like brand new. It's only been around for hundreds, maybe thousands of years before the Gutenberg printing press. Orality is not a new concept. It may be new to us in the technological age, but it's simply telling a story, and then don't tell me what to think. There's too many people in this world screaming meaning at me. Don't interpret it for me. I like to chew my own food. You tell me the story, ask questions, draw the answer out of me. And that's all Orality is doing, is you give someone a story and then you let them find the meaning and the application for their life today. Orality. It's a good tool for your toolbox. I encourage you to use it.